Welcome to Truth and Consequences with Doug Poppa, episode number 32 for Thursday, November 26, 2020. In my last podcast, I discussed in part two emails that Las Vegas Justice Court Judge Melanie Andress-Tobiasson sent me in May of 2018. I will now expound on those emails. Judge Tobiasson in the emails made reference to Las Vegas attorney Jess Marchese. Excerpts from those emails are as follows. Tobiasson wrote, quote, "Thank you certainly seems inadequate. I think I still can't believe that somebody is willing to go to bat for me and expose the ugliness and enormity of it all. I have always believed that if I can get this national, someone would pay attention. One of the things I had said in Jess Marchese's office when I met with one of his clients, who though a really bad guy on paper, is actually a far better human than any of the people involved in these stories, was I was going to write up the entire story and send it to every news agency in the country. That same week, FBI agent is asked about his relationship with me and told not to speak to me as I was a problem for Metro and they were concerned that I was going to go public with my story. The only other person I said that to besides the agent was Jess Marchese. Tobiasson, referring to the FBI agent, who we now know was FBI Las Vegas Division Special Agent Kevin White, continued on in the email as follows. Quote, "He was told not to have any further communication with me. He was also questioned about his relationship with Ariane Zappia and why he was speaking to her. After his interview with her, he had written a report documenting everything she had said and was not advised to back off or questioned extensively. He never documented our conversations because he knew if people in his office found out, there would be an issue because of their involvement with and protection of Metro. It was only after they learned that Ariane, Connie Land, and I were all communicating, compliments of Jess Marchese, I now believe, that Metro and the FBI blew a gasket. Met with Jess and his client on Sunday, October 22, 2017. Jess Marchese also knew that I was talking to the FBI agent and Ariane on burner phones. Guess who my first Mother's Day greeting was from? Jess Marchese. Are you kidding me?" Unquote. Tobiasson continued on and wrote, quote, "A few more points. Marchese is friends with Al Bias. Around the time of the meeting with Jess, Bias showed up at my office twice in one day, and his brother called me that afternoon," unquote. In February of 2019, I conducted an on-the-record telephonic recorded interview with Las Vegas attorney Jess Marchese. In a few moments, you will hear excerpts from that interview. A few comments before I play that recording. Judge Tobiasson wrote that she was talking to one of Marchese's clients, who she described as a really bad guy. Tobiasson stated that she was discussing all this information about her contact with the FBI to one of Marchese's clients. She also stated that during this conversation with Marchese and his client, that she also mentioned Ariane Zappia and Connie Land. Tobiasson must have been comfortable speaking to this unidentified client about her interactions with the FBI, specifically since she brought the names of Ariane Zappia and Connie Land into the conversation. She said this meeting with Marchese and his client occurred on a Sunday. It must have been an important meeting for all three to meet on a Sunday. Tobiasson also stated in the email, just as she did in my interview with her, that the FBI was protecting the Las Vegas Metro Police. She also said that the Clark County District Attorney's Office had deleted from their computers the file on Anthony Galassi, the former pimp of Ariane Zappia. If I was writing a novel, I couldn't make this stuff up. It would be too unbelievable. Yet this is all coming from a sitting judge. Remember from my interview with the judge, she claimed that FBI Special Agent Kevin White told her that then Assistant Sheriff Todd Fasulo of the Las Vegas Metro Police had called White's boss at the time, then Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI Las Vegas Division, Patrick Brodsky, who then told White to stop talking to the judge. In any other locality, this would all be major news, but not here in Las Vegas. The media in Las Vegas apparently, for whatever reason, have their own agenda on what stories they decide to cover and what information they decide to filter out. Some journalists, publishers, and news directors can't put aside their own confirmation biases which then reflects in their coverage or lack thereof in the stories they cover or should cover. Maybe they should find another profession, like in public relations, where they may be better well suited. Now back to Judge Tobiasson. Tobiasson wrote that the FBI agent documented his conversations with Ariane Zappia, but did not document his conversations with her. So, Tobiasson was giving all this information to an FBI agent, but he did not document anything she had said to him. That must be a new investigative technique at the FBI, because if you don't document anything, then it didn't happen. That's Investigations 101. But then again, I have to ask, how would Tobiasson know what an FBI agent was documenting or not in his file? Tobiasson also mentioned Al Bias and his brother. Al Bias is the former Las Vegas Metro Police vice detective, now a patrol officer, whose name surfaced surrounding allegations of corruption when he was assigned to the now-defunct Pimp investigating team. Al Bias's brother, Adrian Bias, also was a Las Vegas Metro Police officer who, according to police sources, was at one time or still may be assigned to a combined Metro Police/Federal task force. Tobiasson apparently was insinuating that Marchese may have told Al Bias about a conversation in Marchese's office with his client. Now, here is my interview with Jess Marchese that occurred on February 20th of 2019. I'll have some more comments afterward.
Hello, this is Jess.
Jess, Doug Poppa, how you doing today? Listen, this conversation is recorded. We're on the record about concerns Judge Melanie Andress-Tobiasson. She made some comments reference to you. I'd like to get your comment on the record, please. Can I tell you what those comments were?
Sure.
Okay. This is partial excerpts from what she told me. One of the things I had said in Jess Marchese's office when I met with one of his clients, although a really bad guy on paper is actually a far better human being than any people involved in these stories, was that I was going to write up the entire story and send it to every news agency in the country. She goes on and on, she's talking, get back to you. That same week, FBI agent asked me about his relationship with me and told me not to speak as I was a problem for Metro, and they were concerned that I was going to go public with my story. The only other person I said that to, besides the FBI agent, was Jess Marchese. He, the FBI agent, was told not to have any further communication with me. He also was questioned about his relationship with Ariane Zappia and why he was speaking to her. It was only after they learned that Ariane, Connie, and I were all communicating compliments of Jess Marchese, I now believe, that Metro and the FBI blew a gasket. I met with Jess and his client on Sunday, October 22nd. Jess Marchese also knew that I was talking to the FBI agent and Ariane on burner phones, and after the Channel 8 story ran on April 2018, I learned that Lombardo was using my possession of burner phones as validation I was somehow involved in drug trafficking. She goes on and on and on, then back over here on the end. Jess Marchese is also friends with LVMPD officer Albert Bias. Around the time of the meeting with Jess, Bias showed up in my office twice and blah, 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 blah. Do you have a comment on this? Is any of that true or not true?
Some is true, some is not true.
Are you friends with that? Not that I gotta think it's Al Bias, but are you friends with Al Bias?
Yes, I'm friends with Al Bias.
Okay. And you know Melanie Tobiasson from professional, personal? I mean, what's going on? Why is she saying this, which is kind of astounding that she was actually saying what she was talking to you about certain things that were going on with her, between her and the FBI. So is this factually correct?
I don't know anything about her and the FBI. You'd have to ask her about that.
Okay. But is what I just read to you factually correct or incorrect? Did she have that? Go ahead.
Some is correct, some is incorrect.
Can you tell me what's not correct that I just read?
Well, you just read me a lot of stuff. I can't, so I can't really give you all the information. But plus, you're also getting into attorney-client privilege, so I can't divulge that.
Well, she's you're her attorney?
No. As you mentioned, there was an individual who she met with who was.
Well, let's get rid of the client. Let's just forget that part of the client. She said one of the things I said in Jess Marchese's office. Let's forget about the client. I'm not interested in the client. Who the client was. That she was going to write up the entire story of what she was talking about, and she was going to send it to every news agency in the country. Did she say that comment to you? Reference about the corruption. She's talking about the alleged corruption she's talking about on the LVMPD. If you don't remember, just
honestly,
say,
I don't remember. She she's obviously had her issues with LVMPD. I think she's made comments like that before. Whether she made it in my office that day or not, I don't know. I honestly don't. We're talking, this was a while ago, if I remember correctly.
We're talking October of 2017, it would have been.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then, well, here she is accusing you. She's saying basically she thinks you're the one that dimed her out to Metro. What do you have to say about that?
Never happened.
Never happened. Okay.
I don't know who dimed who out, but I know FBI agents, of course, but I don't even think, honestly, I have one FBI agent's number on my phone. And he's retired now, and it would not. At that time, I don't think he was even working with the FBI. So
yeah, she's not saying that you dimed her out to the FBI. She's saying she believes you dimed her out to somebody in Metro, and that's why the agent got in trouble because he was talking to her. That's what she's saying here. Compliments of Jess Marchese. Let me read that again. He was also, when she says he, she's talking about this FBI agent she was allegedly having contact with. He, meaning the FBI guy, was also questioned about his relationship with Ariane, this other girl, and why he was speaking to her. It was only after she's talking now about the police department, learned that Ariane, Connie, this other lady, and I were all communicating compliments of Jess Marchese, I now believe. That Metro and the FBI by Blue Gas.
Who's this other lady?
Connie Land is
Ariane? I don't even know who that is.
Yeah,
I've never heard, I don't know that person.
Right. And the other lady she's talking about is the mother, that's what my story's involved, is the Connie Land is the mother of Sydney Land, who was killed in the unsolved double homicide in October of 2016. That's how all these stories started with me by talking to the judge. I'm trying to find out exactly what's going on here. So in the course of conversation with the judge last year, she sent me this memo that I just read you. There's certain parts that are out of it because it doesn't concern you, but this is what she said in memo. This is in her writing, her email coming from her. I just wanted to get a comment from you on it.
Yeah, she's mentioned those people to me before, the Sydney Lamb. She could be standing right in front of me. I don't know what she looks like, or her mother. Well, actually, she's passed, I guess. But yeah, no, I talked to Al. We mainly talk Yankees baseball.
Okay.
Listen,
let me put it this way.
Our conversations.
Okay. There's reference to Al in some of the stories I've done only because his name had surfaced in that supposedly ongoing FBI corruption probe, that his name came up in that. That's how he's referenced in my several stories that I've wrote.
Sure.
I don't know him from Adam.
I can tell you this, that, she knows a hell of a lot more than I do about any of this. I mean, because obviously it's personal to her with her daughter and what happened or didn't happen there.
Right.
So, like I said, a lot of these names I don't even know, and,
Were you a former district attorney, ADA?
No, I was a former city attorney.
Okay.
I appreciate it. My opinion on Melanie, she's a good person. We all make mistakes. Maybe she's making a mistake here. Maybe she isn't. But, everything comes from a good place with her, So
okay.
Whether she likes me or not, it is what it is. But I have no ill will against her. She's a good person. I like her.
Okay. Listen, man, I appreciate your time and your comment, Jess. Thank you very much.
All right. You take care.
Thank you now.
I don't know who the unidentified client was that Tobiasson met with in Jess Marchese's office. What I didn't know at the time of that interview with Jess Marchese was that Marchese was the attorney of record in 2017 for Anthony Dana, who was charged with 1 count of domestic violence and 1 count of domestic violence by strangulation by Las Vegas Metro Police. Dana is also a convicted federal narcotics trafficker who was involved in a conspiracy to distribute multi-quantities of cocaine. He was sentenced to prison in 2006 and was released after serving his sentence. As I previously reported in another podcast, according to court records, in 2017, Tobiasson was under investigation by the Las Vegas Metro Police Criminal Intelligence Unit, which resulted in a court-ordered dial number recorder to be installed on her telephones. As a result, the police determined that Judge Tobiasson and Anthony Dana communicated or attempted to communicate with each other over 1,000 times from July 20th, 2017 to December 4th, 2017. On July 6, 2017, Judge Tobiasson presided over the domestic violence cases of Anthony Dana. the case was dismissed by the Clark County District Attorney's Office. The case was refiled by the District Attorney's Office on January 29, 2018, and assigned once again to Tobiasson, who, according to court records, excused herself from the case due to a conflict of interest. According to court records, Jess Marchese was still the attorney of record for Anthony Dana. On March 23, 2018, Las Vegas attorney David Chesnoff was substituted in as attorney of record for Anthony Dana, and on May 15, 2018, the case was then assigned to Las Vegas Justice Court Judge Amy Cellini, and on that same day, the cases against Dana were once again dismissed by the District Attorney's Office. David Chesnoff is a high-profile attorney who, according to a former client of his, requires a $100,000 retainer at minimum. Chesnoff was at one time attorney of record for Dominic Thompson, the convicted felon and pimp who Judge Tobiasson claimed was involved in the 2016 unsolved Land Kaufman murders. Information about those murders, Tobiasson said, was provided to her by Las Vegas Metro Police homicide detective Jared Grimmett. David Chesnoff is also attorney for music producer and longtime pimp Jamal Rashid, also known as Molly Mall, who was given a sweetheart deal last year by U.S. Attorney for the District of Nevada, Nicholas Trutanich. According to court documents, Rashid was running a 12-year continuing criminal enterprise relating to sex trafficking. After a 5-plus-year FBI investigation that included allegations of corruption by some current and former Metro Police vice and criminal intelligence detectives, U.S. Attorney Trutanich gave Rashid a pre-indictment plea deal of just one count of running an unlawful business for the purposes of prostitution. No Las Vegas Metro cops, current or former, were charged. Rashid, who will not be a convicted sex trafficker, even after pimping out women and flying them all over the country for years for the purposes of prostitution, is scheduled to be sentenced in December. Many in Las Vegas have questioned the FBI Las Vegas Division's investigation and U.S. Attorney Trutanich's decision to offer a plea deal to Jamal Rashid. Why did Rashid get such a great deal is not known. So much for the concern about human trafficking of women in Las Vegas and police corruption. Christine Silva was the Assistant United States Attorney for the District of Nevada who was chief of the criminal division during the time of the Rashid investigation. Silva, according to multiple sources who spoke to me, is also best friends with Clark County Deputy District Attorney Elizabeth Mercer. Nothing out of the ordinary there, except that Mercer's husband, former Las Vegas Metro Police Vice Detective Christopher Bauthman, was one of the police detectives who were allegedly taking payoffs from Rashid to target rival pimps and who were believed to be targets of the FBI investigation. In March of 2019, Christine Silva left the U.S. Attorney's Office after she was appointed by Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak as a judge to the 8th Judicial District in Clark County, Nevada, where she would preside over cases with the Clark County District Attorney's Office. David Chesnoff, according to public records, has been a monetary supporter to the political campaigns of many Clark County judges, including contributions to Clark County District Attorney Steve Wolfson and Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo, who runs the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. From 2013 to 2016, Chesnoff contributed a total of $35,000 to Lombardo. While I'm on the subject of Lombardo and Chesnoff, I came across some photographs from the Twitter page of renowned gambler Robert Cipriani, who was also known as Robin Hood 702. The photographs were taken inside the high-end Oriole restaurant at the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino by Cipriani on the evening of October 3, 2019, the same day that the settlement was announced between MGM Resorts International and the victims of the 2017 Las Vegas massacre. Refer to the screenshots to view the photographs. Las Vegas attorney David Chesnoff, Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo, and William A. Richardson Sr., who was the general contractor during the building of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, were having dinner at the restaurant. When Chesnoff pulled out his credit card to pay the tab, he was told by the waiter that was already taken care of. Cipriani had been seated behind their table, and when Chesnoff questioned the waiter as to who picked up the $600 tab, Cipriani made his presence known. Cipriani, who had a comped room at the Mandalay Bay because of his gambling, charged the check to his room, which included comp meals. So, in essence, Sheriff Joe Lombardo received a free meal on MGM Resorts International. A sheriff hobnobbing with his rich and famous friends at the Mandalay Bay Hotel, the scene of the crime, on the same day the settlement was announced in the worst mass shooting in American history seems just a little unnerving. I guess when you are an elected public official and sheriff, those perks come with the office. One thing on the Las Vegas massacre settlement. I broke this news last year in a story I wrote. One of the mediators during the settlement process was retired Clark County, Nevada 8th Judicial District Court Judge Jennifer Tagliati. Her father is George Tagliati, who at the time of the October 1st, 2017 Las Vegas massacre was the vice president of Mandalay Bay Security and Surveillance. Maybe there was no conflict of interest during the mediation, but those of us looking from the outside in, the optics don't look good. Now, I'm going to close out this podcast with the short video, courtesy of filmmaker Ramsey Dennison, the director and producer and editor of the documentaries What Happened in Vegas and Money Machine. According to Dennison, Sheriff Joe Lombardo tried to get a Vegas reporter fired for writing a story critical of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Apparently, the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution hadn't made its way to Lombardo. In any other city, a sheriff engaging in this type of conduct would have been front-page news, but not here in Las Vegas. It may explain why the Las Vegas media is what it is. Happy Thanksgiving, folks. With any luck, it would be better next year. Follow Truth and Consequences with Doug Poppa on YouTube and Facebook. Support independent investigative journalism at paypal.me/Doug Poppa. Thank you for listening.
One of the things we examine in the film is how under control the Vegas media is to the big money.
They've always tried to control the media, so the media in Las Vegas are handcuffed a lot.
You know, you have the casino owners and you have them utilizing their tools. You know, they have the elected officials that they backed, you have the media that they own, and so they're using those tools to keep what they want in place where they want it.
Everything's connected. The reality of Las Vegas is what it is because they have so much political control over these entities. And I'm talking the city council, the county commission, the Las Vegas media complex.
You know, you're talking about a town where the main newspaper, the Review-Journal, is owned by Sheldon Adelson, who owns the Venetian. So you have a casino mogul that is basically in charge of the printed media here in Nevada.
I was actually interviewed by a journalist from the Las Vegas Review-Journal in 2017. It was a film festival and I had a movie screening at the Paris Resort and Casino, and I remember being in the elevator there when the journalist who did the story on our film, Wesley Jewell, actually told me that Joe Lombardo, the sheriff of the LVMPD, had called up his boss twice and tried to get him fired for writing articles criticizing the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And then more recently, I was interviewed by another journalist from the Las Vegas Review-Journal named Christopher Lawrence. And that was just in July. And I remember being on the phone with Christopher when he told me that he tries to stay as far away from writing anything that even remotely criticizes the LVMPD. He basically admitted to me that he's flat out scared of them. And you can kind of understand why that might be the case, because there was another Las Vegas Review-Journal writer named Lawrence Maurer, who in 2012 did this really harrowing, hard-hitting series about corruption and violence in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And it was a very short time after that that Lawrence Maurer left and went as far away from Vegas as you can get, 3,000 miles away to Florida. The journalists who are actually willing to be journalists, to actually tell the truth about what's going on in their town, like Wesley Jewell and Lawrence Maurer, actually get chased out of town. But the cowards, like Christopher Lawrence, stick around cowering. The journalists who actually practice journalism, imagine that, have to go somewhere else to do it.
We're talking about the largest mass shooting in the history of the United States.
This is a crazed lunatic.
My brother just killed 58 people. My dad was on the 10 most wanted FBI list. We're not normal people. Steve Gam gambled $1.6 million at the Mandalay in the week before he did this. He was really, really angry with the gaming industry.
There's been accusations that there's multiple shooters. That has been proven to be false.
You had politicians grandstanding on this Vegas Strong movement to get elected.
Vegas Strong.
I'm turning tragedy into opportunity.
It was an election year, and it was camera time for Lombardo and his friends.
I want to thank Sheriff Lombardo for your leadership.
I'm getting FaceTime every day.
Almost every press conference, you saw one figure, and that was Steve Sisolak, using this as a springboard for his political campaign.
He used the tragedy to get elected.
While the hashtag Vegas Strong campaign raised over $10 million, less than $20,000 were distributed to the victims in the first 5 months.
We want those records released.
If they came out and said what really happened, I think they're afraid of a period of time where people say it's not safe to go to Vegas.
Nothing happens in Las Vegas without the ring of a cash register.
MGM Resorts is suing the victims.
They are being sued for getting shot.
Shameful, disgusting, outrageous.
The newly released video shows Las Vegas police waiting in the hallway as Stephen Paddock continues to murder people.
Oh my God.
Lives could have been saved if they would have taken action.
They were fibbing the whole time about being such big heroes. They're hiding in the hallway. I asked them, are you stupid or are you incompetent?
Please stop asking your question.
You hear officers directly saying, turn your cameras off.
I'm telling you right now, there's more than one shooter. Could be as many as 3. We saw multiple muzzle flashes coming out that window.
There is no conspiracy.
Can't trust it! Yeah, can't trust it!